And I looked, and behold, a fantasy esports site, and his name was Alpha Draft, and Skrilla followed with him. And power was given unto those that played over the wealth of the earth, to draft their teams, and play in cool contests, and win money, and best the beasts of the earth. So spaketh the Lord. Anyway, that was actually part of the Bible. That was paraphrasing there for my Alpha Draft commercial. Because, to me, Alpha Draft, Skrilla, these are sacred concepts. Actually, incredibly profane concepts. But some people, money's what makes the world go around to them. So maybe play Alpha Draft. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. Wait and hear what I'm going to say now. So, s1mple, Ukrainian star player, has joined Team Liquid, the North American CSGO team. So the lineup is going to be Hiko, Nitro, Elige, Adren, and s1mple. Now, first and foremost, s1mple himself. We need to talk about this player. So he's someone where he came along, and in late 2013, like sort of like 2/3 of the way into 2013, he joined up with Hellraisers, and immediately we saw this guy had talent. Like, for a start off, Hellraisers was a team most famously put together as a CIS region super team. CIS, by the way, is Commonwealth Independent States or something. So it's like Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, these sorts of countries. Kazakhstan. He immediately showed himself to be able to hang with these guys. And these guys were supposed to be the sick aimers. You know, they had like Adosia, these sorts of guys, Kucha. These guys had good aim and at times had been stars for other teams. And he immediately fit right in and was really good, actually. But when I say really good, I mean like above average for a pro. Like for a rookie, fantastic as a rookie. But at the end of the year, even though they made it to the round of 8 of the major, there was problems coming into 2015 because a previous ban he had from ESL meant he wouldn't have been able to play ESL majors anyway. And obviously ESL, for the last 2 years at least, had 2 majors. They had the Katowice one in March, and they had the Cologne one in August. So it meant that he wouldn't be able to play ESL 1 Katowice this March. So that combined, perhaps, with some kinds of personality issues, some friction into internal conflict, meant that he was removed from the team along with Markelov, and they both went and joined Flipside, who at the time was like the third best team in the region, because obviously you had Na'Vi and Hellraisers, and then now you had Flipside as the third best. And they had some okay players. But the key point to make is, at this point in time is where you really saw s1mple's evolution as a player, because he went from being just a good player, like one of the best of that pack of the Hellraisers guys, to being an absolute fucking monster. I mean, this is the problem with s1mple, is that if you haven't watched the lower level teams and the smaller lands and his online games, you won't realize that the only thing that held him back from being one of the best players of the year was pure accomplishments, and the fact we didn't get to see enough of him against the top teams deep in tournaments. It's no exaggeration when you look at his level of play over like 9 months of this year, including up to now, that this guy would certainly have been a top 10 player of 2015 if he'd played more lands, if he'd played with a better team, if he played in majors. Instead, we end up with this player where he's extremely good, phenomenally good for a player outside of the top teams and not going to majors, but it hasn't been able to be shown to the world itself and large, and so people don't realize just how incredible this guy is. I mean, I legitimately think if he'd been on a top team, if he'd been on a Na'Vi type team and he could have held it together and he'd gone to all the majors and he'd gone to all the big lands, I think it really would have been the case that he could have been a top 5 player of 2015. He's that good. He really could have gone toe-to-toe with the Olaf Meisters, Snacks, Device, these sorts of players. Kenny S earlier in the year, Guardian, these sorts of guys, he really could have been right up there with them and performing at that kind of level, because we saw that on the lower level and we saw that online and we saw that in the few games he did get to go off against top level players. In terms of his skills, he has an absolutely unreal skill set. I'm not exaggerating when I say this, okay? So whenever I talk about extremely complete players, I always pick out Olaf Meister and Device, because they have incredible aim, they have incredible technique, they can use all the guns, and they're very good with all the guns. Here's the thing about s1mple. He's one of the only players I've seen where I've watched him play, and I actually think, bearing in mind he hasn't done it at the highest level in finals of big tournaments, when I see his pure skill set of how good he is with all the weapons, he could be as good as those players. You ready? Maybe even better. I think the potential's actually there. A lot of other people, you see some potential, but it'll never be realized, or they don't have the mentality for it. This guy's raw skill level is fucking insane with every single gun in the game. He's absolutely unreal. He's good with the pistols. He's an incredible deagle player. He's very good with the P250. His pistol game is incredible in itself. Then you go to the rifles. He's an absolute monster with an AK. Then you go over to the AWP. Not only is he a beast AWPer, right up there with Device and Olaf in terms of the great riflers who can AWP as well, but this guy's scout is fucking unreal. I mean, here's the thing. His first bullet accuracy when he fires all these weapons is just utterly startling. Like, you watch him play with an AK and he just rips people's heads off with like a single bullet or one or two bullets fired and they just go down. It's absolutely ridiculous to see. And to go along with that, unlike someone like Device, he has this ridiculous self-confidence in himself that only of those players Olaf Meister's had thus far. That's why he's the god. He has this insane self-confidence where he really believes he should get those kills. He's going to. He doesn't seem to get flustered at all. He can get annoyed with teammates and the frustration can build. Even then, he seems to channel that into playing even better himself and playing like a god. So that's a great sign. But he doesn't ever seem to get shook. Like, he doesn't ever seem to get the weight of what's happening doesn't seem to climb onto him. He doesn't seem to get concerned by the fact people think he's an asshole or people look at him and go, oh, you're good, but you've never made it far. He doesn't seem to give a fuck somehow. I think that's part of his problem. In terms of his public persona, the reason he's done so many and said so many stupid things is because he doesn't give a fuck when anyone thinks. And he thinks it shouldn't have a consequence because he's so fantastically skilled, which obviously isn't the world that we live in. But in a way, that's a good part of his game to some degree, but it has a problem in the public extrusion of that. Likewise, for his teammates, one of the big problems that surrounds him is he's so talented. Of course, people from the CIS region should want to play with this guy and make teams around him. But the reason why you haven't seen him in an RV-type team is because his downfall has been when that over-competitive drive and that belief that you are fantastic and that you're good and you can't fail is then turned against his teammates. Because it seems as though this guy has a real lack of empathy for teammates, especially ones who make mistakes. Like, if you're a good teammate, but you've messed something up in a certain way, even if you're winning the game, but he thinks you just baited too much or didn't help him, this guy, it's not just a comment, he just turns on people, he just eviscerates them. It's too much. It's just too much to do this way. So, he is someone where you've got to look at that talent and ask what's going on here, because I've seen examples of this in sports. I've got two great NBA examples for you. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. Two of the top 10 NBA players of all time. Michael Jordan considered the greatest NBA player of all time. Both famously, during large portions of their career, especially early on when they were winning their first championships, actually known to be assholes in exactly this way. As in, they every night are going to go out there. They're driven to succeed. They've worked incredibly hard to be very good. They go at the enemy player, try to shut him down, try to beat him, do everything they can to win. And then when a teammate fails them in any way, or a teammate slips up, or a teammate can't get to the level they're at and can't play as consistently, can't be as motivated every game, they turn on these guys and they think that the way to get this guy motivated, you think it's like me, right? I get motivated by things that are hard and challenges, so they think, oh, I'll challenge this guy, but that means I'll go at him and I'll tell him, you better fucking get it in order. I don't want to play like this. I'm doing my job like you. Unfortunately, what they don't realize is that doesn't work. Like in the Bulls, Michael Jordan did, he softened a little bit, but more crucially, he had Phil Jackson, who really was the Zen master. He understood how to deal with people and when to give them space and when to give this guy a pat on the back. And more importantly, he had Scottie Pippen, who was the ultimate teammate, who really knew how to talk to those guys. I mean, like, listen, I'm the ball handler. I'll get you open shots. Don't worry about Michael. Just let him do his thing. And then in Kobe Bryant's case, he actually did, first of all, he had Derek Fisher to play the Scottie Pippen role, but he also had to learn this himself and realize, actually, I'm being too harsh on these guys. And what he had to learn was how to relate to them. Like, I understand that they are similar to me on some level, not as skill-wise, not as people, and find a way, like, I can understand why they make those mistakes and learn that they're not as good as you and that they can't be, but then find a way, just as you're learning and empathizing with them, to get them to empathize with you and realize, actually, listen, I'm going to play the carry role, so you don't have to do as much, actually. You can contribute in a different way, or you can just, if you just do these small things for me, it'll facilitate my greatness so we can succeed. And I'm going to learn how to use you, and you're going to learn how to use me, and as a result, we're going to become incredibly successful. That's the lesson s1mple has to make. And admittedly, he's a very young guy. Like, I think he's only, like, he might even still be 17. He's only 17 or 18 years old. He's a very young guy. But we know what he's capable of. I mean, this is the guy where, well, his flip side team was able to upset NIP at that tournament. Let me have a look. Let me just check. It was at ESWC. We're just going to look this up here. And it was where Hiko was standing in, which I assume where the connection came to actually be able to get s1mple now into Team Liquid. It almost certainly has to have come through Hiko. And what happened was in the round of 8 of ESWC, yes, here we go. They played against NIP, and NIP smashed the first map Inferno, but then
Flip side won Mirage 1610 and won Train 1612. Despite the fact Hiko doesn't speak Russian, the team all speaks in Russian, but s1mple's a monster. He's just a fucking incredible player. And if you go to the tournament before that, where it was Star Series 13, the one that Na'Vi won over Envious in the final, this guy had a real next level performance at that LAN. He was just a beast the whole way through. And his team had no business getting as far as they did, but he was a fucking monster at that tournament. So, yeah, very, very skilled player. And it's certainly interesting to see that he's coming into this team now. Now, coming into Team Liquid, though, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and assume this means Adren drops the AWP, and that Adren just becomes a support player and in-game leader. Okay, fine. That can probably work with how much skill we've got in the rest of the team, or at least it'll be better than the past lineup. I'm assuming Hiko stays as lurker, Nitro stays as second entry, Elish stays as entry, and so s1mple moves in there. He becomes like a middle of the pack player. He AWPs when he wants, he rifles when he wants. This looks like a good setup for him. Especially in terms of AWPing, he can go head-to-head with s1mple, Skadoodle, and with JDM and be the best AWPer in the NA region. First of all, him joining is a huge firepower upgrade. This makes that Team Liquid, I already thought they were in contention to be the best NA team, especially because CLG is going through some issues where they might lose a player. Cloud9's already lost their in-game leader who defined their whole style. I already thought Team Liquid could become the best NA team, but it would be by a small margin. Now they have a chance to become clear-cut, cemented the best NA team. Beyond that, if it goes really well, if the firepower aspect works and they can build around him, they have a chance to be a top 10 team in the world. And then let's see beyond that, because things go really well. Maybe we can get into the realms where we have a Cloud9 type run where you're making the finals of international tournaments, you're making big top 4 finishes. Maybe that's possible. One thing I do think, though, is that one thing dynamic I'm going to look at is the relationship between Adren and s1mple. Because if he goes in on teammates who have any kind of difficulties, the two who I see potentially being worn down the most is Elish and Adren. Adren, because, I mean, let's face it, look at him, he's not a good player on the international level. He's okay for NA, but he has his issues internationally. Especially in terms of fitting into the team and being able to contribute. Now, he won't need to contribute as he frags now, but if s1mple's going to bring that overly harsh, caustic personality over, that kind of corrosive personality, then Adren's got to be the target for that, surely. He's going to complain if that guy dies, or if he fucks up or doesn't win a 1v1. Likewise, Elish is going in first. He can die some games and have some games where he won't get a great score. Will s1mple be able to handle that? Will he rage? This is a real concern. So the Team Liquid staff around the team, as well as the players, better do a good job of dealing with him. Like I know Hiko isn't like the alpha dog of the team or whatever. He does like deal with things behind the scenes, but if the staff can't do it, it's going to come down to someone like Hiko. He's the other guy with the experience and also a very stable player somebody who's accomplished a lot, who in theory should be able to put his armor on a guy like s1mple. Like, listen, mate, don't worry about that. You play your game. I'm going to play my game. These guys will fit into position. Don't worry about that. We'll become a good team. We'll become a great team. We'll go to majors. Because the key thing is the ban supposedly will be lifted early next year. So we'll be able to go to these big majors and play in them. And obviously ESL only has one major anyway. It seems so far, the Cologne one, which won't be till August. So there's a lot of time for this to work. I also feel as though when he comes to this team, he will immediately become a superstar in NA. He will be a guy where he will just be the name in NA, and everyone will be looking at him. He has a chance to be better. He'll be better than every NA player. At least he has a chance to be. Only people like Skadoodle can potentially be up there. He has a chance to be right up there, and just because of the kind of exposure of being this guy with incredible talent and even though it's not a very marketable personality, like extremely large personality. If this is done correctly, he can be a superstar in the NA region. Now, the one other area I do see an issue is teamwork, because he seemed like a guy in Flipside who just wanted everything his way. Give it all my way. I want to play this way. I want to go to this spot. I'm going to take this gun. I'm going to force buy here. I'm going to do this here. And even though he's playing under a very good in-game leader in Blade, actually, quite an underrated guy in terms of his tactics, how he structures the team. So obviously Team Liquid don't have that great in-game leader. So that's going to be an issue right there. How will his teamwork be? Will he be very selfish? Will doing so actually help? Will the team be able to fit around him? There's still a lot of questions, but this is an extremely exciting roster move. This is right up there with the great roster moves of the year. And the potential for both parties, s1mple and Team Liquid, is great. And I've got to applaud Team Liquid for, even though this is a very risky move, the upside and reward could be huge. No NA team could sign a player this good right now. I mean, obviously Get Right to Cloud9 would have been comparable, but that's not happening so far. So as a result, this is a huge move. Great balls from Team Liquid to go for it and know that it's a gamble, but the payoff could be huge. And we're not going to be just an NA team. We're going to try and be a truly great team. And I've got to say as well, I just like the fact that they've done this move, because I've always said with Team Liquid, the StarCraft 2 team I didn't like. I didn't like the way the Nazgul guy ran it, and it seemed like he kept on to people who were losers for too long. Never could imagine him doing that in CSGO. But one thing I did like was the way the Team Liquid manager got. Liquid 112, Steve Arneset, ran the CSGO team when they were Curse and when they were Liquid, because he always did make these big moves to go for the star name. So I'm glad that they've done it, where I've seen other teams pass on players I thought they should have gone hard for in Europe, and past super teams they could have had, where you could have brought in a European player who was very good. I won't reveal some of them, but some of them played in 2015. So a very interesting move, and I really look forward to watching it, because I love watching s1mple play, and I can't wait to see him play in majors.